Okay, yeah, so we're going to pick right back up where we left off in the last video. We're going to start talking about the second half of the Rime of the Ancient Mariner. Now, I want to point out there's definitely some confusion here for people reading this on their own, even me. I don't have a habit, at least the first few times, and I don't do this poem every year, but the first few times I do a poem, I don't do a lot of going and looking at other sources unless I'm totally confused, because I don't want to be one of those teachers that just repeats what other people have said. But I mean, I don't always agree with everything on the internet. So I kind of like to go through it myself and then let our class discussions and things kind of drive before we start looking at other stuff so that I formed my own opinion. So please forgive me if I wander a little bit as we go through this, okay? So part 5, the man's just been forgiven, let's say, not forgotten, forgiven for his actions. The albatross has fallen off, but we're still in the middle of a becalmed sea with dead bodies everywhere on a ship that you cannot move as a one-person crew. There's a reason they have this many people on the boat. So this guy still has a problem. So he's going to need some sort of miraculous saving, and that's exactly what happens. It says, "Oh, sleep, it is a gentle thing, beloved from pole to pole. To Mary Queen, the praise be given. She sent the gentle sleep from heaven that slid into my soul." So immediately he's able to fall asleep, which he really hasn't been able to do until now. So he's able to rest. When he falls asleep, it starts raining. So now we're getting some fresh water. And that's kind of this idea of cleansing away the old. Anytime we see things like this, you almost get baptism type imagery of being reborn. And that's what we're seeing right now as this man's being reborn. He says, "My lips were wet, my throat was cold, my garments all were dank. Sure, I had drunken in my dreams, and still my body drank." His body drank, not just thirst. It's like he's finally, coming through this. He hears some more weird sounds. Notices some weird stuff happening in the sky. It's almost hallucinatory. It feels like the guy's just seeing things. I mean, here's the description. The upper air burst into life, and 100 fire flags sheen to and fro. They hurried about and to and fro, and in and out the wan stars danced between. So it looks like the stars are dancing around. So obviously it looks like, I mean, this guy's seeing things probably. But what it is this is that miraculous salvation that he requires to get out of this situation. So the weird thing here is, like I said, this ship can't move without a crew. So all of a sudden, all this stuff happening, the dead bodies start to make noise. So they groaned, they stirred, they all uprose, nor spake nor moved their eyes. It had been a strange, even in a dream, to have seen those dead men rise. So now all of a sudden, the bodies have started to come back to life, and they're getting back to their jobs to move this boat out of this situation. The helmsman steered, the ship moved on, yet never a breeze up blew. The mariners all again worked the ropes where they were wont to do. They raised their limbs like lifeless tools. We were a ghastly crew. So the body of my brother's son stood by me knee to knee. The body and I pulled at one rope, but he said naught to me. So they're all going, they're not speaking. They've not been brought back to life. They're still dead, but they're going through and doing what it takes to get the ship moving. And again, we break out of the narrative so that the wedding guest can say once again, "I'm really scared. What are you? What did you go through? Did we really see dead bodies come back to life? This is scary." The mariner tries to calm him. He says, "'Twas not those souls that fled in pain, which to their course came again, but a troop of spirits blessed." He says it's not that these were the dead bodies brought back to life. He says it was some spirits that took over the bodies so that they could get him moving, all right? So we have a lot more very pretty imagery here, but it's not like worth me discussing for you. Let's see. So we also have the breeze return that had left when the albatross was basically killed, and now the ship is sailing back. All right. There's this weird imagery, and this is the part that confuses me, okay? But I'm going to go ahead and tell you, and I'm kind of looking at the notes to the left. That's why I gave you this version. I want you to have the best tools you possibly could. We get this image of a new spirit being involved. We had this scary-looking death-like imagery. Now we have this, that he calls it the polar spirit. Now, your notes call, and I'm looking at this specifically, I'm not sure, this is page 11. Says the polar spirits, fellow demons, the invisible inhabitants of the element take part in this wrong, and two of them relate, one to the other, that penance long and heavy for the ancient mariner hath been accorded to the polar spirit. So you get this, I mean, they call it demons here, guys. I'm not sure whether that's really what the term we needed, but anyway, there's this discussion between several spirits that this guy's not out of the clear. He's not in the clear. He still did something wrong, and that the polar spirit has decreed he is still going to pay for what he did. Now, they're not going to kill him because, well, you can't serve penance when you're dead. All right? So, and this is the line. It says, the other was a softer voice, as soft as honeydew. Quoth he, the man hath penance done, and penance more will do. So we know this is kind of that little cliffhanger to keep you going, because this is what stories need. It's like, so what else is going to happen to this guy? All right, and then as part 6 begins, we have this discussion back and forth between these spirits. The mariner has been put into basically this trance because the ship is moving so fast. If he was awake, he would probably die. So he's in a trance, but he still kind of can hear what's going on. Eventually, though, they get him back. He gets back home to where they left from, because we're going to see a lot of the images when they left. We're going to return here at the end. There's a hill, but there's several other things that he saw as he was leaving. He's going to start seeing again. At this point, this curse on their ship, for whatever reason, from killing the albatross, has snapped. The curse is over. He's returned home. The ocean's back to normal. All the mystical, spiritual things are basically stopped at this point. And the mariner awakens and sees where he left from. He sees his home again and is excited to be back. Obviously, he's been through a tragedy. Now, at this point also, the way a lot of these ships would happen is when you would get to a port, another ship would row out, and they would have a helmsman that would basically steer you in through all of the shallows and stuff and get you back to where you need to be, because, not every crew was aware of every intricacy of every port. So the crew is no longer needed, and the spirits leave and the bodies hit the ground again, and they're again dead. So you got to think for a second. This is going to be a problem when the helmsman that's from the dock gets on the ship and's like, why is your entire crew dead? This poses definite problems. All right. And there's a lot of description here of that. Then we have 3 people that arrive on the boat. You've got the pilot, and then they call it the pilot's boy, which is basically an assistant, and also this third person, this hermit. Okay, and as part 6 ends, we get a little bit about him. So I saw a third, I heard his voice. It is the hermit. Good. He singeth loud his godly hymns that he makes in the wood. He'll shrive my soul. He'll wash away the albatross's blood. So it's kind of like a holy man. And the mariner's like, good, this guy can finally forgive me so I can move on past this. Okay, so part 7, the final part, begins, and the hermit comes in. And it did a little bit of description of him. The hermit good lives in that wood which slopes down to the sea. How loudly his sweet voice he rears. He loves to talk with mariners that come from a far country. So it's like this guy typically just comes out. He loves to talk to people who've been on trips. It says he kneels at morn and noon and eve. He hath a cushion plump. It is the moss that wholly hides the rotted old oak stumps. This guy is a definite holy man. He prays morning, noon, and night for the sailors that come through. He's a well-known figure. So they approach the ship, and the ship seems weird to them. So I've never seen anything like this. They see the bodies. It's definitely a scary sight for them. At this point, the ship begins to sink. The ancient mariner is about to drown. He gets into the pilot's boat, the boat that they were rowing out to him with. He's able to get in and get out of there, and the ship goes down, which makes sense. Okay, this was going to be a plot issue for sure. So the mariner is saved, and he starts discussing that with the hermit. Please, pray for me, forgive me. He says, oh, shrieve me, holy man. The hermit crossed his brow. Say quick, quoth he, I bid thee say, what manner of man art thou? So all of a sudden he's like, tell me your story. Who are you? What happened? It says, forthwith this frame of mine was wrenched with woeful agony, which forced me to begin my tale, and then it left me free. So now we get a sign of what his penance actually is. Every once in a while, the urge will hit this man that he has to tell this story. And if he doesn't, he can't find any peace. And once he's finished telling it, he's able to rest again and find peace. So this is the first instance of that happening, as he has to tell the hermit that. So it says, since then, at an uncertain hour, that agony returns until my ghastly tale is told, this heart within me burns. It says, so for now, forever and ever, from then on, he's forced to move from place to place and retell his story as it hits him. He knows exactly who he's supposed to tell. He sees the person. He's like, that's the one I have to tell this story to. And if I don't tell it to them, I won't be able to find any peace. And he continues doing that. That's his penance. So basically, people that need to hear this message about the value of respecting all living things, when they need to hear it, it's his job to go and tell them. And it seems as if this is a, like, I don't know if it's an eternal thing, but this isn't a, he does it for a couple of years and then he's able to pass away naturally. This is a keeps on going type of thing. He says, I pass like night from land to land. I have a strange power of speech. That moment that his face I see, I know the man that must hear me. To him my tale I teach. So he says, at this point, I know I have to tell them. All right. So we get this imagery that the party is continuing or getting going now for the wedding. So we know we're nearing the end of our tale here. It says, O wedding guest, this soul hath been alone on a wide, wide sea. So lonely 'twas that God himself scarce seemed there to be. Tells him, I was in a place where I thought even God had abandoned me. He's like, this was a lesson that I had to learn. And here's the lesson. He tells him, farewell, farewell, but this I tell to thee, thou wedding guest. He prayeth well who loveth well both man and bird and beast. He prayeth best who loveth best all things both great and small. For the dear God who loveth us, he made and loveth all. Now there's little song you'd have to sing when you were a little kid in Sunday school maybe, and there's even a famous collection of writings by a veterinarian, and it's a play on this is where it actually came from, not from that vet's books, but the thing about God making creatures great and small, the good Lord loves them all, that sort of thing, that came from this, and the point he's trying to make is that we should be respectful of all things living. It doesn't mean you have to be some sort of crazy, super hyper animal activist who thinks that you should never own a dog or, that you should never interfere with nature. I mean, you can do things, and a lot of you are like this. You can do things like be a hunter and be respectful with what you do. You don't go out there with an AK-47, shoot the legs off a deer and leave it there to bleed out and walk away. That's not showing respect. It's okay to kill the animal that you're going to take and eat, or even donate the food to others. But to kill just to kill is pointless. And we shouldn't do these things. We should have respect for the world around us. I don't know what's happened in our world today. We're discussing this, saying things like we should be respectful of the environment or the world around us immediately makes you a bad person in the eyes of a lot of people. But it seems like that's become so associated with a particular political ideology that if you're on the other side, you're not allowed to even make statements like that. And guys, that's stupid. You can be extremely conservative and still care about the environment. You can be extremely liberal and still be a gas guzzling, polluting loser. I mean, this is not a political thing. It's just a thing in general that we need to acknowledge. You can be respectful of the world around you, and that's what the lesson that this mariner is forced to go around and tell people. All right. As it ends, it says, the mariner whose eye is bright, whose beard with age is hoar, is gone, and now the wedding guest turned from the bridegroom's door. He went like one that had been stunned, and is of a sense forlorn. A sadder and a wiser man, he rose the morrow morn. So he turns around, and the mariner's gone like a ghost. All right, that's what makes me think that this is not just a temporary thing. This man's going to continue to do this for the foreseeable future. And then it says, and this is kind of important, this is one of the questions I gave you, it says he wakes up the next morning a sadder and a wiser man. Now, I could go on a whole tangent about that one line, about the idea that wisdom brings sadness. The more you understand about the world, the more you understand about how things work, the more it can build in you this sense of depression. I believe that's on purpose, because the way we're supposed to react to sadness is we're supposed to work to correct what makes us sad. So this poem, the reason we still study it, and the reason I feel it's still relevant today, is we need to look at the way we interact with the world around us, whether it's with each other, whether it's with nature, whether it's with just the technology we have. All of these things deserve to have respect. Even, like I said, even the technology we have, it's not a living thing. Respect isn't just owed to that, though. There should be respect for everything, because of the way the things around us help us and aid us in our life. And we should be respectful of that and thankful for it. And the fact is this bride is not, I'd say bridegroom, he's not. This groomsman wakes up the next day and, he's sadder now, but he also knows more. And this is why that term ignorance is bliss. That's why that phrase is there. Because the idea is if you don't know things, then you can still happily go along like it's no big deal. I mean, I ignore the news right now because I don't want to know how bad things are getting in the world around me. I don't leave my house. I stay right here, just like I'm told to do. I used to go out to get groceries because I felt like I needed to go out. I don't even do that now. And I try to avoid the news because as soon as I get on there, I start realizing all the things that need to be done. And the more you learn about something, the wiser you become. But sadness is a byproduct of that for a lot of people. You look at some of the most wise people throughout the history of time, and they also seem to have this hint of depression. So the lesson here is not that we should not learn things. It's that, there's a responsibility that comes with knowledge. And that's kind of how this poem ends. It's a really powerful poem. I hope you listen to Ian McKellen reading it. It's powerfully worded. When we talk about, the book wanted me to talk about alliteration and assonance and consonants and the other one that I'm forgetting. But it wanted me to talk about all of those because this one definitely has a very sing-songy type of sound to it. You've got the little short stanzas. They're not regular. They typically are quatrains, but we do have several that there's one, I think one time there's a couplet, and there's several times where they go to 6 or even 8 lines, I think. So we do see that mixing up, but there is a definite rhyme scheme, which alternates a little bit here and there, but definitely there's a rhyme scheme, and there's definitely the way the rhythm goes is very musical. So it works better. It's more memorable in a poetic form than it is in a typical prose form. This story loses a lot of power if you just write it out, or you just do like I did and just told you about it. It doesn't have quite the depth of reading or listening to the actual poem. So I hope you guys have a good week. I hope this stuff is useful for you. And I hope that you consider some of the stuff we talked about in here, the importance of respecting all things and all people. And again, respect doesn't have to mean like, right? It means that, we all are living things created by God and deserve to have a modicum of respect given to us, whether it's somebody you love and who's one of the closest people in your life or someone you barely know. There should be a level of respect there. Man, how much the world would be better if we just could learn that one simple lesson about respecting each other. We would see a huge decrease in so much of the evil stuff happening in this world around us. All right. All right, guys, have a great week. Next week, we're going to do some stuff with Lord Byron, and I think next week we're going to close out this era of poetry. We'll take a test on it. We'll start working on your legacy papers, and then eventually we're going to move into the last unit that I'm going to teach. And hopefully by the time we get to the end of that, there'll be some sort of turnaround, and I'll be able to actually be in a classroom with you guys again for the last little bit of this. I'm still holding out hope for that because I miss you guys. And as much fun as it is to sit here and do videos and there to be no distractions, nobody on their phone, nobody talking to the person next to them, and I feel like I can deliver my message uninterrupted. I miss you guys. I miss being in a room with you. I miss talking to you, and I'm hoping that we can get back to this soon. But until then, I'll keep doing this for you. All right, guys, I love all of you. I hope you're having a great week, and I will talk to you again towards the end of this week, beginning of next week. All right. Thanks for listening, guys.